All right, welcome back to the Nagel Bear podcast. We got Nate Skinner back on. What's up, bud?
Not much. What's going on with you, man?
Not much. Well, actually, a lot, but just got the studio all up and running. So you're now the third guest to be christening the new studio. Sadly for the viewers here, all 10 of you, there won't be a video podcast because I can't find the plate for my camera.
So that makes some listeners then.
What's that?
That makes some listeners.
Make some listeners, yeah, instead of viewers. So it'll be listeners for this podcast. So, all right, let's get it started, man. So what's going on? Or
Have you told your podcast nation, all two of them, that you've moved and that you're in a new house?
Yep. On actually, Greeb's podcast launched this week. Chuck will be this upcoming week, and yours will be the following.
Well, congratulations. I haven't said it formally on your podcast.
Oh, thank you.
Congratulations. Home ownership's a bitch, but it's well worth it.
Yeah, it's been amazing. So I mean, like I shouldn't say amazing. It's an awesome feeling to have. I mean, we're already. It's not too bad. Our house isn't too bad with some of the stuff, but we have made those initial purchases of like couches and like, dropping some cash, and you're like, Jesus. But it's amazing though. We have the space, we have the room. There's just like you're making it your own. You're no longer in an apartment rental, like all that stuff. Like that in itself is worth it, and yeah, it's just awesome. We're in a great area, so I love the area we're in. Yeah, it just feels great, like it really does. And just sheer me have the studio down here in the basement. This is all mine, so I can work, I can concentrate, I can have my gear prepped, ready to go. It's mine. Like I don't have to find, it's like because back in the old apartment was just like nightmare moving shit in and out of the house, and it was even worse when I was in Brandon's place. I was like all that gear from film school. Like I'd have to go up like 2-3 flights of stairs, and like they were, it's just. Oh, it was rough.
Yeah.
So this is great. Sure. It goes straight to my studio, right into my car, right into the garage. So, yeah, man, it's awesome. I love it.
Now,
so
if you want to break into Ethan's house, you know exactly where to find all this stuff.
Yeah. So. It's on the back right corner, and yeah.
So there's been a lot going on in the film world lately.
Yep. So this will probably be more. Yeah, we'll focus a lot on the film side aspect of this podcast. So yeah, we both watched. Well, we were talking upstairs before. Just watched Parasite. You still have to watch it.
Yep, I still have to see it.
Yep. So Parasite, of all the films that we went through the list, I watched it last night, and it is in my opinion, I think in a lot of other people beyond the critics, even people that like the film, once you watch the other films that were nominated, Parasite does not hold a candle
to
any of it.
So when you talk about the list, you mean the list that were
Joker, Ford vs. Ferrari, 1917, Jojo Rabbit. Like I'm excited to watch that one because that one already looks like it has more potential than Parasite does. Not gonna go watch Little Women because I have no desire, and then I want to watch Marriage Story, but it's definitely gonna be something that I'm just gonna have to watch in the background because I don't want to sit down and just watch it.
So Danielle and I were about to watch Marriage Story, and really Adam Driver for me, I guess, showed up on my radar as soon as he played Kylo Ren, right? No matter what you think about the last Star Wars movies, it's unmistakable that Adam Driver is a hell of an actor.
Oh yeah, that's what's wild. Is like I didn't realize how good of an actor he was.
Right, and he's also a former Marine, which I think is just a really cool story. I don't know much about his service, but I believe he was deployed.
Actually, I read into it. So he does some veterans once in a while he'll do that, but he actually joined, I think in 2003 or 4, joined the Marine Corps. He ended up, before they deployed in 04, I think, or 03, he ended up getting into a bicycle accident and fucked up his back.
Motorcycle or bicycle?
Bicycle, like mountain biking.
Oh, jeez.
And that happens to guys all the time in California, and he ended up getting medically retired out of the Marine Corps before they deployed. So, but he's still a Marine. He's an actual mortarman. He's an 0331. No, sorry, 0341. I think that's 41s. Yeah. So, yeah. But we were talking, and it's just, I do think Parasite is just not. It's Hollywood. It is what it is. I mean, they give far less. I mean, like because like even like other ones in the past, you're like, okay, the story is strong, maybe whatever's strong. There's nothing about Parasite that was strong. Nothing. Not the direction. Not the cinematography. The story was an original story, but it's not very strong of a story. The plot twists that were in it weren't really that magnificent. Yeah, and it's just and when the movie ends, you're just like, that one Best Picture. It's more, and to me, it's kind of a slap in the face to.
So to remind people, because we were just talking about Adam Driver.
Yeah.
He was in Marriage Story.
Yeah, Marriage Story. So Adam Driver was, Marriage Story.
Best Picture films were as follows. These were all up for Best Picture.
Yep.
From what I can tell, you had Ford versus Ferrari, The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, The Joker, Little Women, Marriage Story, 1917, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Parasite. With Parasite actually winning that award.
Yeah.
So your main grievance here is that you don't think it was even... Do you think it should have even been in the conversation for Best Picture?
No, it shouldn't have been. It should have been Best Foreign Film or Best International, how the fuck they want to do it these days.
I think it's international now because foreign was too oppressive,
oppressive,
I guess.
too politically incorrect. Yeah, it's not. It's not even close. And like I don't even want to say that's an unpopular opinion. I don't think a lot of people saw it, and I think about people that have seen it be like, "Oh, it's good." It was like, well, yeah, it's decent, but it's not Best Picture. It's not at all.
Can anybody tell me what Bong Joon-ho has actually directed or been a part of?
He's done some other stuff before. You'd have to Google him. I don't know. He's the one that I think I've heard of before, but it's not like they're like, oh my god, it's so legendary. This is his masterpiece, and you watch the film and you're like, this is not a masterpiece. This isn't in any way, shape, or form brilliant writing. It's just not. And maybe in South Korea it is, but it sure when it comes to American standards, it's not at all. Like it's.
So I guess the question is why did that picture, do you think, win?
Oh, I'm sure politics. I'm sure it just came down to diversity. They were like, hey, let's have a international film win Best Picture, even though it doesn't even come even remotely close. You know, I just think it's just one of those films where, you know, people just were like, oh, it's from South Korea. It's kind of decent with an original story. Let's nominate it, because there's nothing that in that film at all that I could see being close to being a nominated film. Like cinema, you just break it down, it just doesn't, you know. And you're seeing all these other Best Pictures win the other categories. So and yeah, and it was crazy. I mean, he won Best Director, which is insane. I mean, like 1917, Joker, and Ford vs. Ferrari are far superior in every aspect. And so it's kind of like one of those deals. And I want to see Jojo Rabbit. And I'll watch it this week to really, you know, be like, oh yeah. And I have an assumption, I might be wrong, that Jojo Rabbit will be much better than Parasite, just from the sheer trailers and just even watching the cinematography and it's an original screenplay that won Best Original Screenplay.
So I guess it was a little bit startling to me to see that Parasite, a film that I really didn't know anything about until the Oscar season came around, won Best Picture, especially when you consider that when you consider that the director, I don't think had really been anything that I'd ever heard of. So just to kind of go through to remind you of how, I guess, anonymous this guy might be, and maybe we're just completely ignorant to the international film community, but he directed a movie called Okja, OKJA.
Oh, that
2017
was a Netflix film.
Okay.
Yeah.
I could be totally butchering the name of that, but
yeah.
Snowpiercer.
Oh, Snowpiercer.
2013. Was it any good?
It was entertaining.
Okay.
Yep.
Mother, 2009.
Oh, I heard people hated that one.
Tokyo, 2008.
Wait, Mother in 2009?
Yep.
Okay, so that's a different one than I'm thinking of.
The Host, 2006.
Okay, those are all sci-fi films. Yep.
Influenza, 2004.
That I didn't see. I remember seeing The Host.
Memories of Murder, 2003.
Okay.
Barking Dogs Never Bite, 2000.
Okay.
Incoherence, 94 short. And then he's in a couple shorts. So really, I don't think this guy has a very huge catalog.
No, he doesn't. No.
And the first I've ever heard of him, and all of a sudden, I mean, he came to the University of Minnesota last week to give some kind of like speech on film writing and being an international star, or whatever the U of M decided to push for their agenda for this guy. But they're super progressive there. So he's from Seoul, Korea, and I don't know. I guess it just kind of felt to me like this was forced. Yeah.
No, I agree. I think it was forced because, I mean, and I've seen those other films. I've saw some of The Host. It's all right. But that's a sci-fi film. I mean, but hey, whatever. I mean, God, I forget his name. Todd Phillips directed the Hangover movies, and now he was being nominated for Best Film. So, I mean, but those films I've seen, those other ones that they've listed. I haven't seen Okja. I know that was a real big, and same with Snowpiercer. They're all stories on class and culture. So like Snowpiercer is all about that, like the people at the front of the train are the rich people and the people in the back of the train are whatever.
But isn't that kind of what Parasite was about?
Kind of,
yeah. It was about a family that
it's a poor
workers
family
that infiltrated a rich family.
Yeah.
It's like Was the whole point of the whole class just like the whole movie like here's what class warfare is?
Pretty much.
I mean, it's
but
just,
the thing is like but the thing is like you watch these people do this and you're like, oh, these people they're not like, oh, they're really hardworking, they're just trying to in circumstance. It's just like they're kind of shitty people. They're really shitty people, and then they manipulate other people to make more money. And then basically what happens is they end up infiltrating into this family through the help. And I don't want to give too much away, but it doesn't make sense. They're just like, and there's one point that they're like, the family goes out on a vacation, and then like they stay and they start drinking and eating all their food, and they're like, we deserve this. We work hard, whatever, blah blah blah. I'm like, this is a really shitty take on class warfare. You're showing that honestly, what I took away from it was poor people are assholes, manipulative dipshits that will fuck you over, and rich people are just kind of like, oh, poor people smell bad. Like, that's the takeaway. Like, it really wasn't like, oh, well, there's a different way we get treated or all this. Because, like, the rich family takes care of the help. Like, they pay them very well. They're super nice to them. So there's nothing that happens that you're like, man, these rich people are just dickheads.
So it's kind of like the political agenda in some of the atmosphere that we're dealing with in politics today, where we have certain candidates who are mainly just saying that the rich are the problem in this country, despite the fact that, a lot of the rich people spend money, which leads to plenty of innovations that we all absolutely love and live for every day. But not only is it the first year that it goes from being a foreign film category to international film category, and then you have a vastly unproven director having a movie about class warfare, talking about how bad rich people are, which again fits the political climate and agenda.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too is like these people that like they're poor. And it's a different set of poor, but here's the kicker though. It still doesn't, like, I've seen poor that's way worse than what even the South Korean poor, like how they display poor people. Like even like New York, like people like bums on the street poor, like look worse than this family being poor. You know what I mean? It's really weird.
So they're like the middle class poor.
They're like middle class poor. Yeah. They're just kind of like, they have a house, they have all cell phones, they rip off restaurant Wi-Fi, and it's just like I said, you don't really feel for them because they're just kind of like the like very, there's no inspiration that comes from the story. Like there's nothing, like you don't feel good about anything in what they do. You're like, oh, you guys are just kind of pieces of shit. And that's just the takeaway. Like you just lie about things and then you think you deserve it because you don't even work hard for it. Like you're just manipulating people and lying about everything. It's weird. And then these rich people, they're not even portrayed as assholes. They're just portrayed as, like, the wife is portrayed as like a very gullible. They're just gullible people, but they're super rich. So they're expecting their help not to be. They're like, I can't believe we got past this all with, like, one's an art teacher and one's an English. They're posing as English tutors and an art tutor. And it's like, they're like, I can't believe they don't know. They're like, I just Googled art shit. And she just does. I was like, well, yeah, they're hiring you. Like, they're just going off of recommendations. That's the other thing too, is it's not so much that they found them from a website, is that they got recommended to. So the brother gets recommended by a friend saying, hey, just watch over him. You're really good at this. You'll do fine, blah, blah, blah. So he gets the job. And then come to find out the son,
so the premise is hired help for rich people.
I heard help for rich people. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And by the way, they pay them very well. They're like, oh yeah, we pay them well. And the dad's kind of a piece of shit who's like the main actor. And
the dad of the rich people, or the dad of the
the dad of the poor people. He's like, yeah, but he's like, if we pool our money together, we can live wealthy, we can live great. Like, yeah, well, why would you want to fuck that up? Like, none of it like ever leads to, like, it's not like they're like, man, you know what these rich people are doing? They're like turning us into like slaves and executing us, and like, or like, there's no sexual misconduct. There's no like passive aggressive. They're actually really good people. So the rich people in the movie are really nice people that pay very, very well and then take you into their home and like help, you know what I mean? Like, and then they get all upset because they smell bad. I was like, yeah, because you're fucking homeless people, so don't smell bad, like, and it's just, if you watch it, you'll see what I mean. When you
I really don't have an interest in watching it. I mean, to be honest with you, I felt like the movie came out of nowhere and it was praised and given heaps of glory because of the political climate that we're in. And for years, people have been accusing the Oscars and the what do you call it? The board or whatever, the Academy.
Yeah, the Academy. Yeah.
For being politically motivated and trying to make up for it somehow.
And that's what I mean. Like, it's very it's just, it's annoying because you're yeah, it's just annoying because it wasn't even like I said, none of it displays the rich people doing evil shit. You know what I mean? Like if you're like in Snowpiercer, they're making them eat roaches and they're in the back of a train, and that was actually kind of a cool concept, but it definitely still wasn't like the movie was good as like visually though. Like visually it's good. Like story, you're like, oh, it's a way different story.
Parasite or Snowpiercer?
Snowpiercer.
Okay.
Snowpiercer is like, yeah, and like so that's actually it's a good movie. It's a really good movie. But they're like, okay, like that to me is a better film than Parasite and a better social commentary because you're at least playing on extremes. Whereas like Parasite, you're not playing on any extremes. Like these people aren't really that poor. They're poor, but they're not down in the dumps, living off street, eating trash poor. And then you have a family who is a very, very wealthy family, but they're not even like snooty English, I inherited my money type people. So you're just kind of like, well, these are just like almost normal people. One's really rich and the other one's not so rich. They're just kind of poor. And then you move on with your life. Like, but yet they like try to make it. So when people write about it, they're like, oh, class warfare, this is a masterpiece. It's not at all. Like it's just, it's not very good. It's not that good of a movie. And it's okay. It's got an original story, which is nice, but of like a Hollywood that's full of remakes and sequels and shit like that. But it's just doesn't deliver. It doesn't. And I think a lot of people, like Metacritic has it at 99%. Like, like all those, so you're like, okay, so it's not that good. Anybody that rates anything higher than like 95% for a film or just a film, is not that good.
Well, so not to switch gears here too much, but that's, we can get into it, but that's one of my biggest issues with Birds of Prey.
Yeah.
And
yeah, you saw that. So
I want to get into that in a couple minutes, but just to kind of, so we talked a little bit about Marriage Story with Adam Driver.
Yeah.
My wife and I were going to watch it the other day, but it seemed like such a heavy film.
It is.
Both of us weren't quite in the place that night to watch it.
Yep.
Especially as a newly married couple. We don't necessarily need to watch a movie about, how marriages fall apart and stuff like that. But
yeah, exactly.
Adam Driver was incredible and apparently in the film, so I need to see it. But he was really good in Star Wars. I thought he was one of the shining elements of the last two Star Wars films. He was actually, I watched the SNL Saturday Night Live just a little bit. The only reason I have even watched it was because I saw Adam Driver was on it.
Yeah.
I haven't watched SNL in probably 15 years. And even in his skit pieces, he's so fun to watch and he's so engaging and he's this serious looking guy who loves to get goofy and crazy. Yeah. And SNL brings it out in people. But of the films that were nominated for Best Picture, did you see The Irishman?
Yeah.
I didn't see it because I heard it was like 3 hours long, and that's a slog for me.
It's 3 hours long, and it's about an hour and a half too long. That's literally like I get like what they are talking about, like, oh my God, Scorsese and all this stuff. It's like there's a reason why this movie wasn't made because it's not that interesting.
To go into a little bit more about the film, Joe Pesci was nominated for actor in a supporting role.
Really?
Pacino was nominated for the same thing. So it did receive some real acting chop nominations. As well as it was up for Film of the Year, which is impressive. So, despite the fact that it was too long, you still felt it was good, or what was its?
No, it was okay.
It was okay.
It was way too long. It was okay. Acting. I guess you could say the only redeeming quality is the acting. The acting's really good, but the directing is whatever. The plot of the film, not that good. It doesn't drive you like those kind of long mafia epics like Casino and like Goodfellas are amazing. The stories, the characters, the situations, the interactions. The Irishman just doesn't have it. It doesn't have those type of interactions you're looking for. It doesn't flow as well as the other ones do. Even with all these amazing actors that are in it, the interactions they have between each other are mediocre.
Was it better than Parasite in your opinion?
Yes. No, well, yeah. I think they're both like very wildly mediocre.
Ford versus Ferrari. I was actually kind of surprised to hear that you watched this because you're not like a car guy.
No, but the film looks great though. It's not about whether I'm a car guy. I love like history and like anybody that grew up in that era or even like if you just want to watch sports, like it's an awesome film. It's about them pitting themselves against Ferrari. Like I'm not a car guy, but I know just enough to know that that's an exciting story. Like.
And so you saw it.
Oh, I saw it. It was great.
And was it better than Parasite?
100% better than Parasite.
Was it better than The Irishman?
Better than The Irishman. Oh, yeah.
What was the most redeeming quality of it?
Ford vs Ferrari, the story and the characters. And the story, the character arcs, the character reactions to each other, the overall, just the story, the visuals are great. The cinematography is amazing. The editing, like, it's just good. It's just a great movie. And that thing is like 2 hours and like I think 12 minutes. So that's a long movie, like 2 hours 20 minutes.
Did it feel like it though?
No, right. It goes, and that's what everybody I remember who has seen the film, the reviews, they've said that the first the whole movie, they're like that was over 2 hours, and they're like they didn't feel like it because it just goes and goes and goes. It's an amazing story too. Now this was something I loved about. I think we can bring this up too, with the Critical Drinker, who's a film reviewer. YouTube from Scotland, and he's a very
very articulate.
Yeah, very articulate, hilarious. Apparently, he's a novelist. He actually writes novels. Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, and so he's really funny about how he writes his reviews, and they're like 15-20 minute long, like funny rants, like really good and very like clever. And he talks about the Ford vs Ferrari review was really good because in an era where people are talking about toxic masculinity and all this other shit, like the Ford versus Ferrari, like he brings up this brings up a time when men were men, and it was about winning, and it's about passion, about racing, and like beating like pride in your country and pride in your company, and overcoming the odds. Like that's a big one. The risks that these guys take for no money. Like, you know what I mean? Like the races, they're not, even though this guy Miles is like winning races, he's not making any money off of it. And he's doing it. He loves it. Like he loves cars, and he's like the best driver like on the planet. And then they go to Le Mans, and like if anybody knows about the Le Mans, the 24-hour race, it's 24 hours of driving, and it's just not in a circle. It's like it's a whole track. Like it's left, right, turns, straightaways, range, sunshine, doesn't matter. You have to race it. And the technology was primitive, like compared to what we race with now. And it's so amazing that it's like when they talk about how you have to be like one with the car and understand how it works and everything. That's what it was like back in the day. Now you have computers, you have all this stuff, you have a pit team. Back then it was like literally they could feel out what was wrong right away. They could be like, this isn't turning right, this is the problem. So it was such an amazing story, and it was an amazing acting, and like, Matt Damon was great. Like Christian Bale again murders it. And then they're also being hired by the Ford company to do this. So they're fighting the Ford company executives, not Henry Ford II, but like the people underneath them, because they're trying to take the glory and, turn into their own little like advertising machine, that kind of thing, where they're trying to win the race. And so it's awesome. It's a great movie. It's just a great, entertaining movie that you go see and you love. You watch it and you're like, God, that was a great movie. That was a great story. I watched it down here as I was putting the TV together, and so I paid attention to it. And it's just kind of like one of those movies I wish I saw in theater, because it was so good that it was one of those movies that like I'm glad I went to the theater to go see it. And 1917 is the same way too.
So 1917 was also up for Best Picture this year,
which
both
won.
of us saw.
Yeah, which should have won. I think
opinion,
that as an overall film, should have won. The acting is great. The direction is great. The cinematography is really, really good. I wouldn't call it amazing. I know everything's shot in one shot, but I get they do the one takes, but I still look at color palette, and I still look at how it drives the story, and I honestly think that Joker or Joker or Ford vs Ferrari or some of the other films, like had better lighting, had better.
I mean, I think it's a
type of style.
I think it's an unfair comparison, though, to talk about color palette versus the Joker, who wears bright, loud.
But here's the thing, though.
Outfits.
Even the cinematography, though, from Joker to 1917, I think Joker still crushes 1917.
And I think that 1917 beats Joker, but just by a hair. I mean, I think you're splitting hairs if you're trying to figure it.
Yeah, I would say that.
For me, 1917 was the most visually appealing film that I have seen since There Will Be Blood.
Oh, okay.
And if the listeners here don't remember There Will Be Blood, Daniel Day-Lewis.
That was an amazing film. That performance was amazing.
The performance was absolutely incredible. The story was, I think, engrossing.
Oh, yeah.
But for me, the cinematography was outstanding.
It was.
It's.
Yeah.
I was really happy to have. At the time, I think I had a 65-inch plasma, and
Yeah.
I would go home and just watch the movie because it was just so beautiful to
Yeah.
look at. 1917 did that. Now, obviously, it has to do it in a much more chaotic, frantic, scary, terrible, nightmarish environment, and so you're going to get more of the color palette from the Ford versus Ferraris or from the Jokers.
I mean, the cinematography plays to that end for the story, so it suits the story. It's very there's not a lot. I shouldn't say soft lighting. It's more even lighting. It would be the word. And they did that. Like they had to wait until clouds came out. Like they wouldn't shoot for like whole days, and they would have to wait for clouds to come into the sky, or they would have to, because they need to keep a consistent look, and it's all one takes, or one, doing one long take for the scene. But even though then, I mean, like the framing and composition though of those like they designed it very well, because I remember being at theater and being just in awe of how awesome it was. Like and that's the one you have to see in the theater. It was so good.
Agreed.
Yeah,
100%.
and the way they moved the camera, they moved from composition frame to composition frame, and it's gorgeous. So I think that would elevate its cinematography, obviously, and I think that's why it should have won Best Picture, because the cinematography, even though it doesn't look as good as Joker, but the composition and the movement is in its own right amazing, like its own category, because you move, because it's hard to do that, like you frame up a shot and that's a beautiful shot, but then you cut to a different shot, but have to consistently move without a break from one gorgeous shot to another gorgeous shot to another gorgeous shot, or composition, is extremely hard. And they do it in the film, and that's why I think it should be like, and I agree with you, it winning Best Cinematography. It could have won Best Cinematography, because it does go, like, you remember the shot when they're going into the crater, the bomb crater, and it's all water. Like they go, it follows them, and then it's a beautiful shot of the crate in the water, and then it cuts back up again, and it's just, like that as its own one take, just them coming, it's just gorgeous. It just looks great, and it just keeps going and keeps going.
It looks great. The pace of the film changed in the first act, where you got really comfortable with without giving anything away, with the dynamics of the people that were going to be kind of leading you through the story. Yeah. And it was abruptly changed. And I think that was the right directorial move. It was the right writing move, because war is really shitty. And I mean, you would know better than I would, but it can change in an instant.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And I think it's I think
and they did that really well.
Yeah, they did. In like World War I too, how they dealt with the trench warfare, like how it was great. It looked great, dude. That scene when they're inside the German bunkers was so good. Like the tripwire and the rat. Oh god!
I remember awesome. I remember sitting in that film. And this is, for me, a testament of a really good film, is I was really uncomfortable the entire time.
Yeah, me too. Like I was feeling it.
You feel that at any moment there's such a looming sense of dread that, and for some reason I bought into the characters instantly.
Yeah, me too.
I walked out of that film thinking to myself, under no circumstances am I ever going to complain about my military career ever again. Yeah.
It's just like ever. How shitty things were like, I mean, 100 years ago. Yeah.
A couple weeks ago, I was up at Camp Ripley, and I was literally shoveling snow out of targets. So the snow. Yeah. So I was cleaning out a 9mm handgun range. For people that don't know, there's pistol ranges and there's rifle ranges, but the snow was so deep it was up to my waist.
Oh, really?
And we had, I think, a law enforcement group that was going to go up there, and they were going to be using the pistol range, probably for qualification. So inevitably, the targets need to go up and down, but they can't go up and down if the snow is too deep. Yeah. So my job was to go out there, literally shovel from my waist down, 3 total lanes, and each of them have 7 targets, right? And I had a snowblower, or I had the shovels, and then I had a leaf blower on my back to like leaf blow out all the snow and ice that was still like mucked up inside of the electronics and stuff that are there. And it sucked. It was shitty, and it was hard, and it sucked. But I'm thinking to myself, in the middle of looking at all of this work that I have to do, I'm like, you're not going to catch me complaining today because I just saw 1917. You know what I mean? Like, it's not going to happen. I'm not in World War I. I'm not in trench warfare. Yeah. You might have a completely different take given what you've gone through in your military career. I mean, you can probably complain about your military career
Oh
a hell
yeah,
of a lot more than I can.
yeah. But it's still even compared to like World War II or like World War One.
Completely different conditions.
Oh god, yeah,
completely different.
It's horrible conditions compared to
The other films that were up, my wife saw Little Women. I didn't. I probably never will.
No, not gonna watch that one.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I think that'd be a film where, I don't know, for some reason it just didn't quite catch me. Like DiCaprio has never really been someone that I'm going to go out to go see. Brad Pitt isn't, generally speaking, someone I'm going to go out to go see. But you and I did go see Ad Astra.
Yeah.
But I think we went to go see that for more of the cinematic experience.
Yeah.
That was also a really, to kind of rehash that, because we talked about Ad Astra in length. That was a great film from a cinematography.
Oh yeah, it
piece,
was
too,
gorgeous.
and that was gorgeous.
Yeah.
And then Parasite. So a little bit disappointed. How did you feel? I mean, I don't think anybody was surprised. Joaquin Phoenix won Best Actor in a leading role. He beat out DiCaprio for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Banderas for Pain and Glory, which I didn't even know was a film.
Yeah,
but now I kind of feel like I should go see, because Banderas made a comeback.
Yeah, apparently. Yeah.
Adam Driver, Marriage Story. I do need to see that. I think maybe at some point where I'm in a really, really good mood and it can tone me down a little bit.
Yeah.
And then Jonathan Pryce for The Two Popes. I'm not sure if that was a Netflix film or whatever, but I hadn't even heard of it.
Yeah.
Zellweger made a comeback. She won for Judy, which is actually a film that I want to see. She won the actress in a leading role.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's about Judy Garland.
Yeah. That's what.
And I'm a big Wizard of Oz fan.
Yeah.
At my funeral, I want Somewhere Over the Rainbow played.
Yeah.
Like I love that whole Wizard of Oz. To me, is still right up there with one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah.
So a Judy Garland film, I think I have to go see.
Yeah.
So that's one that I need to put on my list. It's just called Judy.
Nice. Okay.
But she beat out a couple different actresses. Charlize Theron from Bombshell, Scarlett Johansson, Marriage Story. A couple other people. There's a movie, Cynthia Erivo for Harriet, the Harriet Tubman film.
Oh yeah.
The one thing that I really liked about the Academy Awards this year is they did this really nice piece. They had this fantastic singer, I forget her name, African American, and at the very end of it, they had this old school image of Harriet Tubman, and it was just very well done.
Really, that's awesome.
I will say this, for as politically driven as that show can be, they bring in some really nice elements and aspects. Mm-hmm. Actor in a supporting role, Tom Hanks lost to Brad Pitt in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So again, not a film that I was really that excited about.
The Tom Hanks one?
Well, Brad Pitt beat Tom Hanks. He also beat Anthony Hopkins for Two Popes. He beat Joe Pesci and Al Pacino. But what surprises me is Brad Pitt won for actor in a supporting role. Now, I thought Tom Hanks was the main guy in A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. I thought Tom Hanks was the leading role in the movie about Mr. Rogers.
Yeah. So he was nominated for a supporting?
Actor in a supporting role. So weird. I guess I had to go back and watch this film to understand the nomination.
Yeah.
But again, I don't have any interest in seeing Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah. I watched it. It's not that good.
What was it?
It's not. It's like people like.
Why was it so well regarded?
Weird. I don't know. It's just one of those things where I think it's just Tarantino, and people are just like, oh, it's Tarantino. I'm like, I don't know. It was boring. There's some funny aspects to it. Everybody loves the last 15 minutes of the film, and granted, it's hilarious and it's awesome, but the whole entire movie is just like not that good. Like it's just not. Like it doesn't. Yeah, it's weird. It's one of those deals where you're just like Django and Hateful Eight were so much. Even though they're talking most of the time,
Django is so good.
Django is amazing. Is absolutely what everybody talks about Tarantino. Django is absolutely the epitome of Quentin Tarantino.
After seeing Django once, I probably went on to watch it multiple times over the next couple of weeks. The entire movie was really impressive. My favorite Django story, though, is I was at BLC. And so this is after I became a sergeant in the Guard. You go to a leadership course, which you've been to and completed as well.
Yep.
We're at BLC, and we're in the last couple of days, and so really our instructors are just writing up paperwork, and they put us in a classroom just to kind of shut us up for a while so they can get to the paperwork, and we can go on to graduation a couple of days later. And they say, hey, pick a movie and just go ahead and watch it. Well, somebody out of their infinite wisdom decides to put Django Unchained up. Now, for those of you who are unaware or have been living under a rock, Django leads Hollywood or all films in the N-word usage for a single movie.
Yeah.
And so we're sitting here in this military school, and all you can hear is the N-word flying every couple of minutes, right?
Yeah.
Or seconds, depending on the scene.
I was gonna say, yeah.
And the worst part about the timing was that I forget what they're called, TRADOC. It's the big army, right? So you have the big army, which oversees all of the army. TRADOC is they're the schooling certification branch of the army.
Yeah.
So if you're an army school, TRADOC comes in and they do audits and they make sure that you're
doing it right,
keeping it up to snuff and shit. So TRADOC is there in the building running around, and all I could picture was like TRADOC instructors walking around just hearing the N-word flying in the hallways, right? Because we're a new army now, and obviously we're inclusive of everybody and everything for the most part. So anyway, that was my favorite Django story. It was just like I remember cringing when they picked the movie because I could just see. So one of the instructors inevitably walks in. He goes, "Hey guys, we probably shouldn't be playing that movie right now. Can we choose something different?" And I was just like, "Told you so."
Yeah, we saw that on. I remember I was in Afghanistan contracting, and then like my buddy's like, "You gotta see this."
So good.
And it was one of the because it was like December, and they sent out all the screeners, so naturally we got bootleg copies of like a really awesome copy because it was a screener copy in Afghanistan. So we ended up watching it, and I was like, he's like, "You got to see this," and I watched it. I was like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah,
like,
it's incredible.
It's so good, like all the way through. I was like, "God damn, that was such a great movie." So,
cinematography award to kind of wrap up this last year's Oscars did go to 1917.
Oh, it did. Okay, I knew it won something. I couldn't remember what for.
It beat out Joker, The Irishman, The Lighthouse, which is not a film I was familiar with, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So I felt like the right movie got the award there. Again, we're splitting hairs if you think Joker should have won it.
I think
it's easily Joker could have won it easily.
It's splitting hairs because it just becomes opinion based after that. But I do like the fact that in 1917 or Joker should have been one of the two that won it.
Right.
Like for sure. Like no one else should have won that.
Well, especially because best director went to Bong Joon-ho.
Which
so
is
not only did he win Best Director, but he also then won Best Film. Again, I felt like it was the pander bear. I felt like it was a lot of pandering.
And by the way, no one's going to remember Parasite next year.
No,
and it always comes to that.
Especially if you go watch The Joker or 1917 for that matter.
God,
I mean, or for you who saw Irishman.
All of them. And they'll talk more. And again, it's kind of like one of those things where like, it is what it is. It's cool that if you win an Academy Award, that's great, awesome. But it is a bit pandering, and I feel like if you have a subpar film that wins, just to let you know that you didn't really earn it. That's like my takeaway, especially when you're going up against Joker, 1917. I'll give Once Upon a Time in Hollywood its due. It's okay, but even then, if you're comparing Parasite and that's still better than Parasite. Or I take it back, they're on the same par. Ford vs Ferrari, all that. Jojo Rabbit, I'm really excited to see, because I really want to compare it to Parasite, and I want to shit on Parasite a little bit more. So I hope Jojo Rabbit's really, really good. So I'll end up watching that this week.
Last, I think, notable category here is costume design, which went to Little Women, which I think is really interesting because that went up against Jojo Rabbit, Irishman, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That was nominated for a lot.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood should have won costume design.
Okay. Over the Joker, which was also nominated.
That was a great one too, though.
So when you watch movies, and I want your take on this as an amateur filmmaker, producer, podcaster, what I think I take costume design for granted as an average.
Oh, you do.
As an average
dude, it's
film
so
goer.
When you dive into even short films, the most extent I've ever done is short films when it comes to narrative. Commercials are a lot easier to make because they're modern, and as long as they look sexy visually, like you can get away with it because it's 30 seconds, 40 seconds, 60 seconds, whatever. You're trying to sell a product. But when it comes to short film, the big drastic pieces that separate a really good short film from a really shitty short film that we make all the time is going to be the actor, the costume design, the cinematography, the production value, as in, did you shoot it in your parents' basement, or did you go rent out a facility and you shot it because that fits the story? And you'd be shocked to how good things look, even though they're much simpler, say, than a different script that you've seen. It just looks better because you're not, you're not how should I say it? Like, you're not hiring a kid to do an adult role, if that makes sense. Like, all the characters are cast properly. And even then, if you get everything right, it may still not be that good. So, but production design is huge. Like costuming, getting like all the right little quirks and stuff in the room right. setting the tone, the character's actions around those, like around different set pieces and then around different things, like it's everything, production design's huge. Costuming's huge. You could make or break. I mean, look at Johnny Depp in Pirates of the Caribbean. That's an iconic role now. But think of the costuming choice that they had. Like, they're like, this was crazy. Like, Disney execs were freaking the fuck out when they started seeing the dailies of Johnny Depp and, eyeliner and crazy ass, dreads and stuff like that in Pirates. And it's one of the biggest franchises ever made. So, yeah, it's huge. All that's, you got to incorporate every aspect, and you take it for granted. Once you go that far, you realize if you ever have to scale back again, you realize what's important and what's not, like, it really is. And costuming and, lighting's incredibly important, but your lighting doesn't make fuck all unless you have really good costuming,
No, it's not really truly a costume design, but I think one of the most apparent recent examples of costume design being really important is what happened with the new Sonic movie. When the original Sonic character design came out, fans hated it.
Oh yeah, they crucified it.
Yeah, I mean, it looked awkward. It didn't look true to. You could tell it was Sonic, but it looked really weird.
Yeah,
really long, tall, skinny legs, kind of a human face.
Yeah.
It wasn't really a hedgehog.
Yeah, it was.
And the studio literally pushed back the release of the film. And they said, we're not going to do a fan filmed Sonic.
Yeah.
Without a design that you guys like.
Yeah.
So,
because that's what it's for.
It's not costume design, but at the end of the day, when you're looking at a CGI character, I mean, his look, his design was everything to the film.
Yeah.
And apparently so was Jim Carrey, but we can get into that another time.
Yeah, how much did that make?
It did very well.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
So according to Twitter here, weekend box office estimates, Sonic movie did $26.3 million, and Call of the Wild, comparatively speaking, did $24.8. Birds of Prey did $7 million. That was from Box Office Mojo. That was a tweet from them.
What's the total then for Sonic?
Let's see here. The Sonic movie has finally surpassed Birds of Prey in the overall box office. Sonic movie, $203 million.
Whoa!
And they're saying that Birds of Prey did $173. I'd like to know a little bit more about that. I think they're talking about global.
That's global numbers.
Because when Birds of Prey came out, I think it only did like 23 or 33 million in its opening. In its opening run. And depending on the sources that you're looking at, people are going to tell you that Birds of Prey did better than it did, or that they're going to take a look at the global.
They always look at global because they get their ass saved by global.
Well, and
that's how they break even.
And that's the thing too. And so globally speaking too, I think it's important to know that elements of film, especially in American films, get cut out. Mm-hmm. Especially if it's too controversial for some politics.
Yeah. Well, here's the kicker, though. This is what I'd like to know when they do report those box office numbers. So this is something I found out in my research just because I wanted to make short film narratives and long form narratives as well, and like distribution and money making, how you actually make money off of this stuff at our level, obviously. But so when you go into theaters take like a 35 to 40% cut of the film. So that box office that they're talking about, I feel like, I don't know if that's the numbers that come in after the cut that comes from the box office, or if it's before. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So if it's 173 million, did it only make 110? You know what I mean? Like, did it only make 30% of what it, so it's only at 120 million or something? Or is that the total gross, not the net?
Right.
Because when they talk about that stuff too, marketing, so like, I don't know how much it
costs.
That
takes a huge piece of,
and that's why they lose money. So like when they said that even though maybe it took $80 million to make, they might have dumped another $50 million into marketing, and if it only makes so much, it maybe made $10 million then, 20, which isn't a failure, but you're very slow to green, with all the terrible reviews, you're not going to make a sequel.
So my wife really wanted to go see Birds of Prey. I like looking at Margaret Robbie, for that matter. And so I decided, okay, I should probably go back and see Suicide Squad. And the reason I didn't see Suicide Squad when it came out was because I just heard it wasn't very good.
Yeah.
So we went and we watched it, Suicide Squad. And I thought that the movie was okay. I thought that it had some fun character pieces. I thought that overall it was a mess. But that Will Smith did a really nice job of taking control of scenes when he needed to, when Margot Robbie couldn't necessarily carry them herself. Occasionally, she could carry a few scenes on her own. And I walked away from the movie saying, okay, I'm glad I saw it, but it didn't do a whole lot for me as far as feeling any one way about the characters. But Harley Quinn obviously was the character that everybody wanted to see more of. She was also, I think, portrayed the right way. So I guess this is kind of getting into a whole different can of worms here, but you have Birds of Prey, which is a female-directed, all-female cast, which to me runs in the same vein as the all-female Ghostbusters. It runs in the same vein as, what was that, Charlie's Angels, which came out.
Oh, God. It's a rental now.
It's a rental. See, and that's only been out, what, 4 months, 3 months?
Came out, and I think it was like November, wasn't it? Or something? Yeah.
So it's another one of these movies that people are saying, okay, well, it's not doing well in the box office because of men. It's misogyny. It's men that just don't care because it's all women. They're not going to go see it, which I vehemently disagree with, especially when you consider that Captain Marvel, not being a great film, did really well.
Yeah.
And granted, it had Marvel behind it, but I don't think that men are afraid to go see a movie that has an all-female cast or that's led by a female director. I think that men are now really skeptical to go see these movies, if anything, because they're worried that it's just going to be over-the-top male bashing.
Yeah.
That's a lot of what I think Ghostbusters set the trend of. And I don't want to say that Charlie's Angels was doing that because I didn't see the film, but I can literally tell you after seeing Birds of Prey, and then, as I've stated in previous podcasts, going back and looking at the YouTube videos and stuff, in the moment when I was seeing the film, I didn't quite realize what was going on because I try to take in the film for what they're putting in front of me. But it was very clear after looking at some of the other people's responses to it that I literally couldn't identify one single positive male influence in the entire film. Now, I'm not saying that a movie has to do that to be good. But when a movie goes so far out of its way to portray men as being misogynistic, sexist, money-hungry, overbearing, credit-taking, probably already said money-driven, and they don't show you any other negative side of what the other sex might bring to the table, or they don't show you any one redeeming male figure or quality, it just screams feminist movement, femininity, reign supreme, fine. But that's not the kind of movie that I think most people want to go see.
No, yeah.
So it's a movie that people didn't ask for.
Yeah.
Margaret Robbie specifically wanted to have a very diverse cast. That's why you have an Asian is one of the lead supporting roles. You've got an African American woman as one of the metahumans, which wasn't even introduced in the film until like really the very end. You've got an African American police officer who really takes up and leads the charge. You've got a very culturally diverse cast in the background, which is fine. I think that if anything, Hollywood has said we need to get more culturally diverse. But they cast people in positions and roles despite the fact that there was no good sense to do so. One of the younger girls who played one of the supporting actresses in the movie was so horrendously painful to watch on camera. Yeah. And she brought nothing to any scene. She was just there because, in my opinion, she was the Asian token that they needed to have for the film to make it culturally diverse. They didn't even bother themselves to find an Asian actress who could actually act. They did such a poor job with character development that you actually wanted to see more of some of the background characters than you wanted to see of Harley Quinn, because she just got kind of annoying and overly lucky, and she didn't come off like the badass that she did in Suicide Squad. Margaret Robbie wanted to make sure that she was more covered up in this film, meaning she didn't want to show as much skin, because she didn't want it to be about the sexuality of Harley Quinn, which goes completely against the fact that Harlequin has always used that to her advantage. And she's always used it as one of her no pun intended, but assets.
Yeah.
I mean, she's used her sexuality to get what she wants at times because she understands how the world works.
Yeah.
This movie just tried to pretend like
Didn't exist.
it didn't. Yeah. I'm kind of going on a rant here, but the point is, I'm sick and tired of this culture that. So I saw a box office statistic that more men went to see this film than women.
Yeah.
So if men are the problem, then why didn't more women go out and see it?
Yeah.
If men supported the film more so, then how is it misogyny that ruined it? Mm-hmm. Or is it poor writing? Or is it poor acting? Or is it poor set design? Exactly. Or is it poor... Yeah. Ethan, there's a scene in the movie, I'll give away one scene to display how poor this is. Mm-hmm. There's a scene in the movie where Harley Quinn goes into a police station with a shotgun. Mm. She's going to go break somebody out of jail. The shotgun is a beanbag launcher shotgun. Okay? Sure, it can neutralize somebody.
Yeah.
She walks into the front area of the police station and she shoots the officer behind the desk with a beanbag shotgun that when the projectile comes out, sprays glitter all over the place.
Yeah.
So the whole artistic direction of this scene was for her to go through the corridor of the police station and just destroy cops with a beanbag launching glitter bomb machine. It made for something that was visually appealing.
Yeah.
You had a lot of color palette going on, as you say.
Yeah.
But none of the police shot her with an actual gun.
Yeah.
None of the police actually said, holy smokes, we're under attack.
Yeah.
We are going to rain bullets down on her.
Yeah.
Because they had to move the scene forward to get the person released from jail. The entire thing was so poorly executed that it was just, how do we bring color and madness and show how lucky Harley Quinn is? The whole thing with her just being lucky in the film.
Yeah.
I hate the fact that people now look at the success of the Sonic movie and they go, well, it's because men want to go see a movie about, Sonic and Dr. Robotnik, and that's why No, it was probably just a better film.
Yeah. Which is wild to think about. That Sonic the Hedgehog movie is a better film. I mean,
it is wild.
Yeah.
It is wild.
Well, I think I was talking to you about this. I know you haven't dove into it, but when I was talking about with Greaves about the Terminator franchise, but about Dark Fate, and I watched Dark Fate. We had discussed it when it came out. How it just tanked at the box office, and it was one of those deals where I was like, oh, I'm gonna watch it, and I watched it. I actually kind of enjoyed it slightly. There's some really good entertaining scenes, but the thing is the reason why it was so shitty is because the story's not good. And so the hype with James Cameron writing the story, it's like, well, apparently James Cameron can't write shit. And then recently, he's got 2 Avatar films coming out. I honestly don't think they're going to do very well. I think they're going to do okay, maybe be big in Asia, but I don't think it's going to meet near the numbers that Avatar did. I think Avatar was a good flash in the pan at the time, a very good visual film, but the story wasn't the best.
Well, it was just about this mining company. Yeah, it was about this mining company that was going to destroy the universe, and it was just about their greed and how they just didn't care about the indigenous species. Like it was.
Yeah, it was Dances with Wolves in space.
Yeah, it was just a world's.
Yeah,
but it was a Greenpeace movement.
But it was great visually, though. It was a
very
appealing film. But here's the kicker, though. Dark Fate, they're like, oh, it's going to be amazing. We're going to bring back Sarah Connor. Dude, they shit on John Connor and Sarah Connor, which one, by the way, I mean, like, so you're going to kill off the 5 films before it. Regardless of how good they are, you're killing the franchise. Like, you thought you were going to restart a franchise by killing off killing off John Connor, which they do in the beginning of the film, spoiler alert, and it looks amazing, by the way. Like the facial, like the new reconstruction, and making Linda Hamilton looked like they had shot it in 1992. Like, that's how good it looks. Like I can't remember his name, the guy that played John Connor, looks amazing. Like he looks exactly the same. It is flawless.
But didn't
CGI.
they kind of start playing around with that 15 years ago when they came out with that one sequel where they had
Terminator Salvation had it.
Was it Salvation where the new Terminator looked just like the vintage Schwarzenegger?
Yeah, it was.
That was like one of the first times
Christian
people
Bale. It's Christian Bale. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, Christian Bale was in, like, and you only see it for so long though, because he shoots him in the face and like his, and then he just turns into a regular Terminator.
But that was like the first time that they had done
tried it,
reconstruction type thing where
Yep.
you made a character look young again.
And that looked pretty decent, but it wasn't Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it was a body double, and they just did the face.
Got it.
But this one is like Schwarzenegger's body double looks amazing. I'm sure they did one with Linda Hamilton and whatever, what's his name, to be a kid. But the face, dude, it is flawless. Like, it is. I tell everybody, I was like, that scene alone is amazing. Now, once you get over that, they kill off John Connor, right? So that ends the Skynet. So Skynet no longer. So they destroyed Skynet, right? So then a new thing takes over called Legion. So Legion sends somebody back to kill John Connor. The whole story is everything about John Connor and Sarah Connor protecting, which, by the way, is a badass female protagonist.
There's a lot of them out there in movies.
Through the record, like on record for years, because they always complain about that. Amazing. They make her irrelevant in this film, even though she comes back and keeps fighting. They're like, they send this one female hybrid Terminator back. And then they're like, who are you? When they all meet up, they're like, who are you? And she's like, I'm Sarah Connor. And they're like, we don't know who you are. I was like, that's why this movie failed. Because you shit on the two most important characters. So not only are you trying to change the franchise, which nobody wanted, you took out two of the most important characters in this film and said they don't mean nothing. They don't mean fuck all. And then you can tell they did a politically driven like piece, because they get a protagonist that is Mexican and on the border, and they even portray coyotes, taking illegals across the border as heroes. Yeah. He's like, they're like, isn't this illegal? He's like, I'm not the bad ones. So that they literally, because people are going to be like, look, coyotes are not good people, and then because they typically take everybody's money and they leave people for dead, or they barely get them across alive, the border. And so then they go into border patrol, and then he fights his way through. It's just ridiculous. And then it's not even a good, again, acting and writing. She's not a good leader at all. Like, they portray her in the future. She looks maybe 2 years older than she does. So she's 16. She looks 18. She's not a good leader. They don't give her any inspirational dialogue. Literally, it's just her saying, let's stand together and fight, and that's it. Like, anybody with half a brain could do that, and she does nothing special to become a general, whereas John Connor, even though he's not military, I mean, Greaves talked about this, Sarah Connor was so insane that she trained him by dating Green Berets and dating military men to teach him tactics. And if you ever watch the films, they talk about that. They always talk about how she was crazy because she kept talking about the end of the world, but then there was guys that would teach him that were related to military tactics and all this. She trained him on all the weapons. He could do all this stuff. And so even though he's not formerly military, he at least has
he has a base of knowledge.
A base of knowledge, and where she doesn't. And then, they try to do this whole inspiration, and it's terrible, and it's not good. But then there's really good parts of the film, though, that are shows the future and shows way Legion being way more lethal Terminators, which is fine. But it's I don't want to see the time people going back in time anymore. That's why Terminator failed. We're done with it. You either continue on with Salvation, or you continue the franchise as the war is happening, because nobody wants to see these time travel films anymore.
If people are going to continue to do a franchise, and obviously over time you're going to change a director, why can't we just make a rule where all Hollywood franchises need to literally just have a battle book, where if you're going to build another film, it needs to be in line with everything that's happened in canon prior. Yeah. This is one of the issues that Star Trek has run into. This is one of the issues that Star Wars has run into. A franchise like Terminator, it's just the next director takes over, they want to bring it to a place that doesn't necessarily make sense because they're not paying homage or respect to what all that groundwork was in the past. It's like building a foundation of a house and then building on, extra parts of the house that aren't supported at all by the foundation. It's ultimately going to give away.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why Hollywood doesn't say, okay, this is a really reputable film franchise, and that some of the actors themselves don't just step in and say, hey, wait a second, I'm going to speak out against this film. Yeah. I don't view it as... I realize that's not necessarily the way it works, but there's too many really good franchises out there that just continue to suffer from different people's vision and just taking it way off track.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think it's just that it comes on everything. Screenwriters switch it up. It's never intended to be 5 films deep.
And maybe that's the biggest problem. Is
executives think.
Let's just quit continuing to make these films.
Well, somebody thought Dark Fate, this was going to be good. James Cameron's behind us. You look at the screenwriters of who actually wrote Dark Fate. There's 7 of them. Anytime you see that, that means the film isn't good. Yeah. And even though James Cameron is part of it, and then he was a producer, it's like, dude, you should be fucking ashamed of what just happened. Yeah. And then he shits on Tim Miller, the director, like 2 days before it releases. Tim Miller has an interview saying, yeah, he was insanely difficult to work with, which I've heard. James Cameron's like, unless James Cameron is helming a project, like being a director, he's a pain in the ass. Because when he's a director, he's an asshole. And if he's a producer, he's a pain in the ass. You're not going to get across what you want as a film director because he's trying to insert his own thing. I was like, well, then if you believe that much in the project, you should have fucking directed it. Mm-hmm. But James Cameron didn't direct it. Therefore, it's not going to be that good. Because if the original guy said he's coming back, but he's not helming the project, but he's going to be a part of it, that means he's not. He knows it's not a good enough story.
He's half in, half out.
He's half out. Yeah, he's half in, half out. He's like just hedging his bets. And it tanked, by the way. So you saw the result. And I think for James Cameron, as legendary as he is, I honestly think that Avatar isn't going to do as well as they think. And it'll make its money. I think China's going to be huge for them.
Oh, it's going to make a huge amount of money. I mean, look at Disney World. But the entire Avatar world. I mean,
but it's been too long though. It's been 10 years. 2009, 2019. Actually, it's going to be like 11 years.
Well, and Cameron just recently came out and said that he wants to do like 5 more Avatars.
Yeah.
So it's going to turn into one of those deals where it just becomes a corporation at the end of the day, kind of like Star Wars.
Star Wars, yeah. But even then, I don't think it's as big as Star Wars because we don't care about Avatar as much as they do as Star Wars. Like Star Wars, 40 years later, still has a massive fan base, whereas Avatar doesn't have that.
And I've been able to watch every single Star Wars film and find things that I can find redeemable and enjoyable about each and every one.
Yeah. And like I said, I saw we talked about Rise of Skywalker.
We did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We had the whole podcast.
Almost 2 hours.
2 hours worth. Yeah. And it's they tried. They tried to redeem it, They did their best. They did what they could, but again, it's shocking to know that they didn't have. You're right, and it came out during this film was they didn't have a storyline. They just thought Rian Johnson was going to try to continue what. It's like that's insane. Like Lucas at least still had this is the story. He wrote it with the people that wrote it, so he at least had one person as a producer after the first Star Wars came out in '77 that said this is what we're doing. You're the director. You can do your creative vision, but this is what needs to happen. And they, and then they didn't. They not resurrect, but they bring back one of the biggest franchises on the planet, if not the biggest. And then they're like, "Fuck it, let's wing it," thinking that it's just going to keep. And then they got the backlash, and it's just like insane. But
it was redeemable though. I mean, you can say what you want about the last film, but like it was redeemable.
It was redeemable. That's what I'm saying. Is like prior to that, but they hit the panic button how many times before they got to where they got to. And it made really good money, but it definitely didn't make as much as it could have. It's like, which still shocks me that you're putting that much money on the line. So it makes me feel better as a filmmaker. Like, oh, nobody knows what the fuck they're doing, even at the highest levels, So that is what it is.
I am particularly excited to see what's going to happen this summer with the new Ghostbusters film.
That looks really good. I'm excited
to completely change gears.
Yeah,
we talked a little bit about the feminist movement and movies that have been focused on females and blaming men for misogyny and whatever. Not because I want to beat the dead horse here, but the all-female Ghostbusters film, to me, it's still at the top of the list for one of the worst all-female remake, reboot, just attempts at any former IP that I've ever seen in my life.
We should watch Charlie's Angels and see if that holds up.
We should. So you saw the all-female Ghostbusters, correct?
I did.
Okay.
Honestly, it wasn't good. It wasn't that good. I don't think it's as bad as people said it was. I refuse to.
But
it's not that good, though. I agree with you.
I refuse to acknowledge it as a Ghostbusters film.
That I understand. I understand that.
With that being said, I've recently gone back and watched the first Ghostbusters, the second Ghostbusters. Classically great films, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. I'm a little bit split and torn on which one I like out of the first two the most. I think they both have good storylines. I think that 2 does a nice job of building off of the success of 1. I think that 2's a little bit more lighthearted, somewhat, I guess, quote-unquote, campier than... I don't know why I say quote-unquote when I'm not quoting anybody. A little bit campier than the first one. talking about someone who's a fucking pain in the ass to deal with. I guess Bill Murray was back then a real pain in the ass.
Oh yeah, I don't doubt it.
He didn't want to go back for the second film because he didn't really care for the way the first one was shot, and they really had to coax him and convince him to come back for the second one. And I think at the end of the day, it was just about paying him as much money as possible. But those first two films I thought were awesome in their own right, and forever people wanted to see a third Ghostbusters film. They wanted to see it turn into a trilogy, and they didn't get it.
No, and it was kind of surprising that they didn't. I was surprised that they didn't do that back in the 90s, or when it, come up with a trilogy. Because Star Wars was doing it.
Well, Ghostbusters 1 was way more successful than people thought it was going to be, and I think Murray decided to go back to the second one because he actually realized that despite the fact he didn't want to shoot the first film, he actually had a lot of fun filming it.
Yeah.
And I think that during the second film, he became harder to work with, and so it just kind of really never worked out that they could get him to sign on to a third. Mm-hmm. So most people probably don't realize this, but the third film ended up coming out in the form of a video game. So I think the year was 2000. Geez, I'm probably going to butcher this. I think it was like 2008 or 2009. The original cast of the Ghostbusters film got back together. So Dan Aykroyd wrote, along with Harold Ramis, the Ghostbusters video game. And for all intents and purposes, it was supposed to be the third film.
Yeah. So
you play as a playable character who is just a recruit to the Ghostbusters. So instead of being a band of, what was it, three or was it? You had
yes, 4. Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, the black guy.
Yeah,
I can't remember his name.
And Harold Ramis,
great actor too.
Yeah, and Harold Ramis.
Yep.
Was it Willie something?
No, it's something else.
Anyway, so
Ernie Hudson.
Thank you. Ernie. I was getting close. So the video game ended up actually bringing all of them back to do the voice work. Mm-hmm. So as you're playing the video game, you're playing it with the original voice actors from the entire franchise. Yeah. And I'm still playing through it. I'm stuck on a boss fight right now. I can't get through it, but the voice acting is terrible. You can tell that they all kind of did it in different sections of the country and just meshed it together. Like Bill Murray doesn't sound at all excited about it. But really it's Harold Ramis's last Ghostbusters piece of work that he was able to complete. Mm-hmm. And he sounded pretty interested. It's just Dan Aykroyd's baby, so he obviously sounded interested. Yeah. Ernie Hudson just kind of sounded like he probably shot it in California somewhere and it was meshed together somewhere else. Yeah. Anyway, so I just wanted to catch people up on that because the third movie took place in a video game.
Yeah, yeah.
So fast forward to 2012 or 13 or whatever it was.
Yeah, it was like 13.
And then the all-female film
14,
comes out.
I think it was 14, 13, 14.
The all-female film comes out, gets absolutely panned. It gets absolutely destroyed. There's not a lot of people that enjoy it. Yep. A lot of the social justice warriors are saying that it was men that ruined the box office score, the money, all that kind of stuff. It's men's fault that no one wanted to see it, despite the fact that Helmsworth was a man that was completely inept and incompetent and whatever. And again, another one of those movies where there's not a positive male influence in the entire film. So let's fast forward to this last fall, when the trailers for Ghostbusters Afterlife came out. Now you like to break down trailers. I assume you've seen the trailers.
Great. Yeah,
What caught your eye on this one?
I'm like, I can see they're kind of like, it depends on, because it's is it Ivan Reitman? No, not Ivan Reitman. It's his son.
Yeah, so actually he's the grandchild of the original director.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I think I've seen some of his films. They're pretty good, I think. I can't remember which ones he's directed. But it looks great. Like I don't know how they're gonna play the story, but I feel like it looks like it's gonna be a really good movie. I like how they're bringing the grandkids into it. It'd be interesting to see how they're playing it up. I know Stranger Things is a real big thing now. I just hope they don't try to play it too hard as a Stranger Things type film. Like I hope they make it its own thing, its own property, not trying to like ride the coattails off of like Stranger Things and whatnot.
Well, and one of the reasons you're saying that is one of the kids is in it. Finn Wolfhard is playing in the film, who is the main kid from Stranger Things. Which I think is kind of unfair that people are saying, "Hey, Finn's in a creepy kind of paranormal film, therefore it's already trying to be."
And for me, it's not so much him. It's just that I just don't want it to feel the same as Stranger Things. I don't want it to be like kid centric. Like I'd like to see something play along the lines of like they have because aren't they like the guys in it, the original cast?
Yeah, so Bill Murray is coming back to play Venkman again.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be including Ernie Hudson as Winston Zedmore, which I'm super excited to see him back on. I don't know what he's been in recently, but
I don't know, but
he was an awesome Ernie Hudson or Winston.
Yeah.
Dan Aykroyd is coming back to play Ray Stantz.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we're not going to be seeing Harold Ramis play Egon because he's physically dead.
He died,
which is just
ago,
really shitty because this movie looks really good.
Yeah.
One of the things that I like about what the trailers have done, though, is this seems to be a love letter to Egon.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I've heard that too. Yeah.
You know, in some of the early films, Egon made some comments that he collects spores for fun.
And they have that in the trailer.
Yeah, so in the trailer you see, a collection of spores and stuff, and I'm sure that's somehow going to link into stuff that's taking place in the film.
Yeah, and it's something to do with the mine shaft or something, or it's something. Anyway, it looks good. Like it looks like it's a really good sequel.
It legitimately looks like a love letter to a franchise that people have wanted to have back for so long.
Mm-hmm. And you sometimes you always wish to hopefully it goes well because it looks good. It's not being campy. It's not trying to make itself like a comedy. You know what I mean? It actually feels like it's a film than a comedy.
So I'm on IMDb right now and I'm looking at the writers for this film. Check this out. It's kind of cool. There's a guy named Gil Keenan who's a writer. Don't know who he is. Jason Reitman, who is Ivan Reitman's grandson, wrote it. And it's based on Dan Aykroyd and then based on Ramis's work. So I'll be interested to see if Aykroyd gets any screenplay or screenwriting credits or anything like that. I'm sure he's going to be somehow tied into maybe helping bring the characters full circle.
Yeah.
But it looks like it's only being written by this Gil Keenan and Jason Reitman right now based on Ramis's original work with Aykroyd.
Yeah.
So I'm encouraged that there's only two...
Yeah, there's
two
only
writers.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I would love to see if Aykroyd gets some kind of
writing
credit or something that comes along the way. But if anybody hasn't seen the trailer yet, I mean, it's now Paul Rudd. Yeah, I'm really excited to see. Mm-hmm. I think he's going to be a really nice fit to this universe that they're going to be essentially rebooting.
Exactly. And like I said, I like the feel of the trailer already and the way the film looks. It looks like it's going to be a good movie, like good movie structure. It's not a comedy. Whereas, like you said, like the one that they did was a very SNL sketch comedy.
Yes.
Whereas, and very Paul Feig, which is what he does. And that if you've seen his other films, like I've loved his other film, like that he's done. It's funny because they're comedies, but they're lit like comedies and they're designed as comedies. But you see this trailer for Afterlife, it looks like a film. Like it looks like you're intrigued of it's going to be a real good story to dive into, and there's comedy along the way, but you can definitely tell that they're going to put heart into it.
Yeah.
And they're going to put character development and everything.
A lot of the scenes end up kind of like showing like the unveiling of the vehicle, the Ecto-1. It shows a lot of the original I guess, uniforms coming out of a closet. It shows kind of the kids discovering the fact that, oh my gosh, here's a trap. And I think one of the characters goes, that's a really great, replica of a ghost trap. And they're like, what's a ghost trap? And he's like, you've never seen a ghost trap before?
And they like YouTube them?
Yeah. And he's like,
you ever seen this? Like, no.
And the movie specifically says here, one of the things I think is cool, this is a quote from Paul Rudd's character. It goes, "There hasn't been a ghost sighting in 30 years. New York in the 80s. It was like The Walking Dead. Your dad has never mentioned this to you?" They're completely ignoring the existence of this all-female cast as a part of the canon because they're saying, hey, for 30 years, we haven't had a Ghostbuster or anything because they're so eager to write it off as not being a part of the franchise.
God, what else did they just do that totally wrote off something as well? It was something else that fans were actually really happy about. I can't remember.
Well, a lot of stuff in Star Wars wrote off what the previous Star Wars had done.
I guess that would have been the last big one too.
So I'm really excited to see what happens with this. I think that it's going to be something where if they choose to do it respectfully, they can turn it into a few more films after Afterlife. Yeah. I don't think there's any way that this movie doesn't go bananas at the box office.
I think it'll do well. I don't know. Bananas is what Joker is, making $1 billion. I think it'll probably make close to 300-400 million.
Okay.
As long as the trailers keep it as what it is now and they don't try to camp it up or try to make it, like I think it's on the right path. I think it's on the right path right now.
This to me could be what the.
When's it come out, by the way? Is it this summer?
I don't see that I can see here with the actual. Here we go. Expected July 10. So right now it's in post production.
Okay.
Are you going to be gone?
Nah, I'm going to be gone. Yeah.
That sucks.
I'll have to catch it. I'll be done with OCS and I think July 24th. So I'll have to catch it about 2.5 weeks after.
What? The Star Wars film, the first of the last three. What was that called?
Force Awakens.
The Force Awakens. There's so many Star Wars movie titles that I can't keep them straight, but The Force Awakens did a really good job of bringing you back to the original films.
Yeah.
I feel like this could be the Ghostbusters version of The Force Awakens.
Yep.
If it turns out to be that good, because I thought The Force Awakens was a really good movie.
Yeah, I did too.
This
I liked it
could be a good launching point, and I really hope and I think that there's no way that this doesn't belong to Reitman in the future.
Yeah.
Jason's probably going to continue to do it, and if anything, if they make a second or third Afterlife franchise film, it's going to include Aykroyd. It's going to probably include Bill Murray, or at least in the writing elements.
Yeah. It'll be nice to see how they incorporate them into the film.
Right. No, totally excited to see that. The original films came out in '84, and then the second one came out in '89. You had a couple other pieces of canon that came out for the Ghostbusters, which would have been like the Extreme Ghostbusters, which was a cartoon show. 1997. One of the cool things, if you really want to go back in Ghostbusters lore, for anybody who's into that around here, the real Ghostbusters cartoon show picks up right after Ghostbusters 2.
I didn't remember that.
It literally places itself in the aftermath of the success of the second film.
Yeah.
And there was a Ghostbusters. They called themselves the real Ghostbusters to originally say that the Ghostbusters characters from the movie or whatever, were playing off of what these guys had set up and done. So it was really like tongue-in-cheek kind of humor, the way they proposition themselves.
Do you remember wasn't there a Ghostbusters cartoon that was like the new generation or something?
Yeah, that's the Extreme Ghostbusters. It ran for 1 year in '97.
Dude, I love that. I watched that.
Yeah.
I was a big fan of that.
And then you had the 2016, obviously, Ghostbusters, Melissa McCarthy.
Yeah. That was 2016. That was 2016?
Yeah. It really wasn't that long ago.
Really?
And then there was a TV series called The Ghostbusters, 1975 to 1975, so it ran 1 year. And then you had the original Ghostbusters, and so there's been other versions of Ghostbusters, but the ones that really took off were the ones that we're familiar with, Aykroyd and Bill Murray and Sigourney Weaver. And apparently it went through a bunch of different names when Aykroyd was creating it. It took him years to get it off the ground. It went through a bunch of different concept pieces. I mean, they were essentially plumbers in New York that were just.
Did you ever watch that
Catching Ghosts?
Movies That Made Us on Netflix?
I haven't seen that yet.
Dude, it's good. They do a Ghostbusters.
Do they?
They do. Die Hard's all right. The Home Alone one's amazing.
Okay.
Home Alone is a great. Watch that one because that was really good. Ghostbusters is really good, and and it's funny too because you see the same visual effects people because of the '80s. They're in a few of them because there's the visual effects aspect, and they're the only guys in town besides ILM, and they end up having to take on a bunch of projects that, as we know now, is classic films because there's only 2 companies in the entire Hollywood that could handle it, and they split off from ILM because they were guys that worked at ILM and then made their own company, and so they handled Ghostbusters and they handled Die Hard, and so they get interviewed they're like, oh yeah, and you're like, they were in the last documentary, but the Die Hard one is, I have all the Die Hard behind the scenes, so there's nothing new there for me, but the Ghostbusters one was really good. It was really awesome. And then the same with Home Alone. It's shocking how good the Home Alone behind the scenes was. That's just my takeaway.
It's just something you're starting to lose more and more, just to get off subject, but the behind the scenes stuff.
Dude, I hope they don't. You kind of see that more, and it upsets me a little bit because I want to. You see more YouTube videos of it, but I want to see. I miss because that's how a lot of people learn how these things get made, and all these
people aren't buying DVDs. They're not buying Blu-rays. I mean, Blu-ray is kind of a dead thing now, and I know that there's going to be people that ultimately continue to buy them. And
I will keep buying them,
right? Because 100%. You want to build your collection. But I'll be honest with
I
you,
like hard copies of stuff though. I want to be able to. Sure. No matter what
most
happens,
people,
just
want to stream it. So.
Yeah, that's true. Streaming's a little bit easier sometimes, but I love having the Blu-rays because they do have all the features. Netflix can't have one. You don't get the alternate commentaries. You don't have the actors and the film directors talking.
I know that you
like
didn't.
those are real things that people learn, you know, like how to make films, or even just like all those behind the scenes are incredibly valuable.
I know that you didn't watch any of Dark Crystal on
No, I didn't
Netflix,
at
which
all.
shame on you.
I know, dude. I tried, man.
Shame on you.
I went 5 minutes. I'm like, I can't.
That's the problem.
I
is
can't
you
do
can't,
it. I can't do it. I tried.
You can't go 5 minutes into something this groundbreaking.
Ah.
And really, truthfully speaking, it's groundbreaking what they did.
Yeah.
But it's the only recent behind the scenes that I've actually taken time to like watch.
Yeah.
And it makes me appreciate what I saw on film that much more.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of times where you're watching.
See, I would love to see the behind the scenes. Well, do they have
maybe you need to be the guy that like watches the behind the scenes first and then
watch it maybe, and I might appreciate it
and
more.
You'll be like, okay, I understand now.
Yeah. Because that in itself, the puppetry, I do miss puppetry.
Oh, man.
And there's stuff like I've always envisioned, like there's a few films that I want to make that I want to do puppetry mixed with CGI.
Just do me a favor and do Chuck a favor. Watch the behind the scenes.
I know he's a
first
huge
stuff.
fan too. Yeah.
Or watch that. I just went completely dyslexic. Watch the behind the scenes stuff first.
Yep. And then
And then get yourself past 5 minutes.
Okay.
You will literally forget that you're watching a show made of puppets.
Yeah.
That's how well done it is. Gone are the days where you see the fishing line strings. Gone are the days where you see the arms kind of like flop up in a weird.
Yeah.
I mean, this thing, you understand that you're in a Jim Henson world.
Yeah.
And obviously, you know, they can't quite do with mouths what we would expect to see in animation.
Yeah.
If anybody hasn't seen The Dark Crystal on Netflix, it's hopefully not underappreciated, and I hope that I can only imagine how tremendously expensive this was. And what I love about Netflix is what they were going to do was they were just going to do an animated version, kind of a CGI version. Mm-hmm. And Netflix didn't like what they saw.
Yeah.
And they said, what is it going to cost us to do a full-blown puppetry version of this? And the Jim Henson studio was like, it's going to be incredibly expensive. And Netflix said, show us some test footage. Let's get an idea of what this could be. And when they saw it, they were 100% sold on.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I think Netflix does that goes completely underappreciated, is they really do focus on high quality content.
Yeah.
So if you can get yourself to watch the behind the scenes and you go, holy smoke, this is what went into it, you'll end up watching all of them.
Yeah.
My wife and I made sure to finish it. So anyway, I completely off track there, but that to me is the only behind the scenes stuff that I've seen lately that I've been like, this is truly worth watching because it is so impressive what they did.
All right, I'll have to check out the behind the scenes.
You won't, but you really should.
Yeah, because I agree with that. That's what I love about Netflix and them changing the game, because they talked about, I'm actually still watching the roundtable, but it's all the studio executives of Amazon, Netflix, Disney, Universal, A24, some other ones too, and they all passed on The Irishman, and they were like, look, we could do The Irishman, and they're like nobody can do that but Netflix, you know, and the other studio executives are like the Disney is like, yeah, that was awesome that you did it. It's like, we couldn't do it, and they're talking about Disney Plus now, you know, because Disney's getting into it, and they're like, yeah, we're running our content, blah blah, and they're also talking about how they're making films and how they're deciding to make films, and you know, original ideas, and you know how streaming is going to disrupt everything, you know. So it's pretty cool to see that everybody, you know, is kind of being like, this is the new platforms, but Netflix still brings a quality to everything. I mean, like I think that's what people love about Netflix is the fact that what would be cool, if they can do it, it's just got to get them in the right hands, is that you could do a Ghostbusters run series. You know, you could make a 10-hour Ghostbusters movie, you know, 1 hour a piece. Easy. And the quality would be that of a film. Easy. They would spend $80 million and make it 10 episodes. You know, they do it with like Stranger Things. I mean, like, Christ,
so good.
Game of Thrones, they could do the exact same. That's like a everyday Netflix thing is Game of Thrones, you know?
Yeah.
And like same with like Westworld, and HBO is a different type of monster because they're a cable channel, but they kind of like were the ones that crossed that line before Netflix did. You know what I mean? Because if you think about it, HBO's been around for so long, they would have those miniseries that were epics, and they were like films, but they were a miniseries. But for a long time, there wasn't anything that else could do that, and then Netflix took it over, and that's all they do.
Chernobyl to this day still being
amazing. Amazing.
Absolutely nothing compares to what Chernobyl did as far as a miniseries is concerned.
And
granted, I've only probably seen a small portion of the universe's miniseries, but I can't imagine a whole lot being better than Chernobyl.
Oh, Chernobyl was so good.
Interestingly enough, with the coronavirus going on right now, I can see a version of the Chernobyl miniseries being created off of what's happening in the coronavirus. Apparently, the Chinese doctor who discovered this virus was told to shut the fuck up, go about his business, and not be an alarmist.
Yeah.
And he is now dead from the virus.
Exactly. Yep.
So I can see Chernobyl all over again here, and it just makes me wonder what that will look like in 4 to 5 years when someone decides to do something about coronavirus.
And absolutely crippling China's. Like right now, they're like
not just China, but I mean,
well, even U.S. interests, but here's the kicker: U.S. interests we can adapt and.
But I was just at work, and the president of our company just addressed us on like what our company is doing to stay ahead of the coronavirus.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just this is the ripple effect is not real. This isn't,
Yeah.
Now, granted, I think the U.S. is maybe just as capable if any of the other major world powers to be able to handle something like this, but.
No, I'm saying the virus is fine. I'm just saying like the economic and collapse of China.
No, but we can handle
when all these giant companies
we
are
can
saying,
handle that.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Is like China now being, this is great. China's they're cheap and blah blah, and they have this crazy, nanny state or not nanny state, but the police state and all this stuff, and it takes one virus to bring it all down.
Yeah,
because people could be like, we can't handle this. One, the economy, our freedom, all this stuff. You're a communist party that's banking on capitalism from other countries. Locking people up for going against the state, and now this virus comes through and starts killing people. All the other countries in the world are cutting off trade ties.
Well,
I mean, you think their economy
and the government didn't
absolutely
want
drop.
any of this
to get
spoke
out.
about,
which
is exactly what happened.
What happens
Chernobyl.
in a communist, what happens in a communist country that doesn't have good health care and a good system? They can't handle it.
Right.
I mean, that's why they can't adapt to it, because there's too many top-heavy people being like this, and this. It's all about ideology, and people are just dying, and thing just evolves no matter what. You can't solve the problem, not in that kind of society.
That's crazy.
Like you said, like they would have had more nuclear meltdowns if it wasn't for the guy in Chernobyl saying, nope, this is it.
Well, yeah, because they had to go find the other flawed reactors.
Yeah.
So I think this is going to be a Netflix series. It's going to be an HBO miniseries in the making, however they choose to do it. But to your point, Netflix is they're willing to spend the money.
Mm-hmm. I think they did bring up some stuff though. Amazon executive was on the panel too, and they're talking, and they said it's going to be tough, and they didn't really say directly who, but they said it's going to be a little bit tougher for the catalogs because all the other shows are trying to pull their catalog. Like NBC is pulling its catalog from Netflix. Disney just acquired Fox.
Yeah.
So it's going to be the battle of who you're going to pay for, who you're not going to pay for,
There's also something to be said for the types of shows that are out there now. Like, I haven't had any interest in seeing Jack Ryan because I know that and this is on Amazon.
That's good. I like it a
well,
lot. It's
well, fine.
Series.
But when they paint the dictator as being a nationalist who isn't socialist and isn't about oppressing his people, but he's a nationalist zealot, they're essentially saying this is what's going to happen in Trump's America. And like that just kind of
in the series,
if you go back and watch one of the setup episodes, and they talk about like the main villain from the very first
season.
They're talking about one of the rising superpowers, and he's running on a nationalist agenda, and now he's some evil guy. It's like, can we just stop? Like, just create something original. Give us something that this guy is doing that doesn't have to do with like American politics as it is. Like, I'm really sick of that type of writing.
Oh, you got to watch the series because I don't remember any of that.
It's there. We'll find it.
Because the first one is about him just hunting down terrorists in like France.
Well, and I think it was one of the terrorists that was on the come up, and they make the comment he's running on a nationalist agenda that's extreme. And it's like
because the second one is kind of like Venezuela-esque.
I think that socialism is extreme.
Yeah.
But the nationalist agenda, I'm okay with for the most part.
Yeah.
So it's just how they frame it.
Yeah.
And like I don't want to be hit over the face with these shows that are just so overly politically driven.
Yeah.
And so it's one of the reasons why I try to seek out things that are just original stories and they're not necessarily going to be slapping me in the face with their own political views.
Yeah.
If I want that, I'm going to turn on CNN or Fox News or MSNBC.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful when it comes to that. But
no, I agree.
It's almost unavoidable now.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
But and I mean, I mean, Jack Ryan's actually a really, really awesome series. So actually, I hope they come up with a season 3. But yeah, man, I don't know. It'll be, I hope, like I said, going back to Ghostbusters, I hope, and when they take IPs like that, it's almost like I wish they would go back to making them more epics, like treating it as more valuable than what they are. Like, don't make them into comedies. Don't make them into an SNL sketch. Don't make them into a YouTube piece. Like, treat it as a film. Like, treat it as, this is the epic. This is a Lord of the Rings. Like, treat it as such. Like, if you make a Terminator, treat it as such. Make it epic. Make it something that's going to be worth going to see. Don't try to make it politically driven. Don't try to make, inject whatever bullshit you want into it. Be brave and move on and make it something different, because I guarantee it would make money. Like, people want to see what's going on into the next step, because when you rehash something 4 or 5 films over, no one gives a shit anymore, And I think like, even with like, I think that's why everybody loves the Netflixing stuff. And like, Stranger Things couldn't be one film, the depths of everything. So everybody's getting used to that. The depth of storytelling is awesome now.
And that's what Netflix has shown, is like that, and that's what bothers me so much about some of these lazy Hollywood films that have been coming out lately, is if Netflix can make a miniseries, or if they can make a couple of seasons really, really good, why can't you make 1 2.5 hour block of film full of cohesive writing and cohesive storytelling?
I think they're starting to step into. So here's the kicker with Netflix films. From what I understand, Netflix originals aren't really originals. They typically buy properties that are either struggling or buy properties that are being sold. So like, when they are now doing funding directly, but that's not until recently. I think Okja, that one, I think that was originally a Netflix film. Like, Netflix said, we are funding this directly. Whereas a lot of films on there aren't that. They bought them and then they distribute it through Netflix. But they did pay them. Like that movie War Machine with Brad Pitt, that was never a Netflix film, but they bought it for like $50 million and they finished it, and then they said this was a Netflix original. Six Underground and The Irishman are the first like 2 big giant budget films that Netflix released. They gave Michael Bay $150 million to make Six Underground, and they gave The Irishman $200 million to finish. So those are like, as much as people have been talking about Netflix originals, they've either bought properties that are struggling, that they finished, they buy them, and then they slap their brand on it. But it really wasn't until this year that they came out with 2 films that were, here's our check. This is a no shit Netflix production. We're behind it. Go for it. And granted, you came out The Irishman, Six Underground, entertaining as shit. Just, you got to rein Michael Bay in. It's like, if you give him too much money and too much, creative control, it's just going to turn into Six Underground, which was entertaining, but there's some pretty rough parts, but super entertaining. That's my opinion. But Irishman's the same way. It's kind of like they're like, oh my God, we got Scorsese. And you're like, do you need to rein this motherfucker in? And there's a reason why great film directors are where they are, is because not because they got their creative vision across, but because they had to fight for what was in the film and what had to be cut out of the film. Sometimes there are times when the best decision was never the film director's decision. It was because the producer said, this is fucking ridiculous. The only reason Star Wars is good as it is not because of George Lucas. It's because of his wife and the editing team behind her. Like, if you ever see the original cuts of what they did, it's a dog shit film. Yeah, it was terrible. They went into a panic. It wasn't the visual effects that saved it. It's the editing, because it's still about storytelling.
Sounds like not much changed. And the last film was going through edits,
a
couple of months before it was
always
released.
comes down to story and editing. Editing is a massive piece that people always overlook. And his wife was a really good film editor. And in 1977, she took it over, and they started cutting and slashing scenes because it's garbage. It was garbage if you look through. And he's like, I don't know what's wrong with it. And then you flash forward to the trilogy that came out when we were kids. Now people shit on it, but that's because he almost had too much creative control, because he was too much involved in it. And sometimes you just have to, sometimes I don't like it because everybody was like, oh, the studio steps in, they all this. Well, sometimes you just need a different pair of eyes to look at it and be like, this doesn't work, man. Like, I know you love this scene. It doesn't fucking work. Cut it. And that sometimes those are the best decisions that ever get made, because there's stuff I've seen, again, behind the scenes stuff where I've watched unrated stuff or uncut films that are the director's cuts, and I'm like, ooh.
You understand now why this is director's cut.
Yeah, I understand why this got cut. There's Man on Fire. Love it. Great film. Saw it in theater. Love that version. Tony Scott. There's a scene in there where he's banging the wife, Denzel Washington, and the wife just start banging. And you're like, it's just like, it was worth being cut. And I'm like, oh. and it's done in that weird Tony Scott. If you remember Man on Fire, like how it was shot like that. It's such
I don't remember the specifics, but I remember seeing the film.
Yeah. So it's this weird scene, and you're like, it changes everything in the film, kind of. You're like, oh, well, he banged the one, so it's just kind of this, it adds another dimension to everything, and I'm glad they cut it, because as it plays out, it's great, because he doesn't bang the wife. All he does is care about the child. That's it. That's his sole purpose in life, is to protect the child and find her, and that's all he cares about. Again,
keep a film focused.
Yeah, because it's like it keeps it focused. Because now you're thinking like, well, he was banging the mom. Is she more in the picture now? Like, should they now? Is there a family kind of chemistry? Like it's that, and you're like, no.
That's why I think an editor. I think ultimately, and I don't know if it works this way in Hollywood, but I think an editor needs to be 100% away from the production. They need to be away from the shooting. They need to be away from the script writing. The editor should sit in at the very end and say, all right, Ethan, here's a film about so-and-so.
Yeah.
Go ahead and watch it.
Yeah.
And then you would, without any emotional ties, cut it down for sense-making purposes. Like I think sometimes the editors are so involved in
they are
every element in detail that maybe they tend to lose sight of what makes it a cohesive message.
And some of the best editors can find that in films that weren't involved with it, and they take a really shitty film and make it wildly mediocre so they can make money, so it can just break even. They'll bring editors in to redo a whole film. Because in fact, they brought in trailer companies that work on film trailers, like the previews. Actually, that happened to Suicide Squad. Suicide Squad was so horribly edited. The company that did the trailer, the one with Bohemian Rhapsody, and they loved it. And they were like, all right, so they just hired those people to then re-edit the film.
It was a damn good trailer.
It was. And there's some amazing trailers out there. And there's a company out there that does amazing work. Like, I don't know who it is, but goddamn.
It was probably the company that did the trailer for Dr. Dolittle, because I remember seeing the trailer going, holy shit, Downey Jr. is going to be playing a character who, legitimately can do Dr. Dolittle less crazily than Eddie Murphy could. And Dr. Dolittle was horrendously bad. Now, granted, I brought my niece and nephew to it, and the only reason I went to it is because they're into that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it was a horrendously bad movie.
Yeah.
It was 1,000 times different than what I thought I was going to get from the trailer, which was, I'm going to get an awesomely epic story about, Downey Jr. being able to do some incredible, cool stuff, because it was so bad that I felt lied to.
Yeah.
And that's what a really good trailer company can do.
Yeah,
is
exactly.
They can lie to you up front to get you to go spend the money. And it was $50 after popcorn and tickets, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. All right, man. We'll wrap that up today. That's an hour 36. That's the longest podcast, I think. Oh, no.